This episode of the Young Turks is brought to you by GoToMeeting, online meetings made easy. Originally, there was a black farmer, Timothy Pigford, from North Carolina. In 1997, he sued the government saying, hey, you know what, black farmers have systematically been discriminated against when it comes to price support loans, disaster payments, farm ownership loans, operating loans, and that the USDA has completely failed to process any of those claims. It turned out he was right. Okay, the courts started to rule in his favor, and then the government conceded and said, you're right, we did do that systematically between 1983 to 1997, 9, in that ballpark, okay? So once they conceded that, they decided, okay, we're going to do a Track A, Track B, we're going to find out ways to pay you. People who did Track A, which was the great majority of them, got a blanket $50,000. People under Track B sued for more because they had very specific evidence. Now remember, it's hard to have specific evidence of your farm being discriminated against. It's easier to have general evidence that the USDA decided, hey, you know what? The farm programs were applying to white people. We will not apply to black people. And they had that evidence. That's why they won, right? So they did both of these tracks, and some people who had specific evidence about their farms being discriminated against got even more money. But when people found out, and they found out rather late, that the government had finally conceded on this issue, the filing deadline had passed. So what happened was a second group of people said, hey, listen, we would like to get compensated because that discrimination affected us as well. Now that's being called Pigford 2. Now, again, the government concedes that is true. And in fact, you have Republican senators like Chuck Grassley from Iowa, who just voted in favor of it the other day and who's been pushing it all along, saying, absolutely true. The government discriminated. We owe these people money. We should give it to them, all right? Now, in Pigford 2, they have set out $1.2 billion to give money to people who should have gotten the assistance and didn't based on their skin color, okay? Now, of course, other Republicans like Steve King hate this. And they think that it's part of a plot by the black president to give black farmers more money for no reason, right? Now, even though the government settled this in the 1990s, okay, and President Obama was nowhere near the federal government at that time, but apparently Steve King thinks that Obama somehow hatched a plot to get those black farmers their money all the way back then when he was in the middle of Chicago, right? Who cares? Logic's not necessary, right? So we showed you a clip yesterday where he said that when President Obama was a senator, he was a, quote, a very, very urban senator. Gee, I wonder what he means by that. And yesterday I hesitated in calling him a racist. I said, look, that looks like, that smacks of racism, but always with that word. It's a dangerous word. I hesitate to use it. I'm no longer hesitating based on this that he also said about Pigford 2. Let's watch.
And the claims might be, well, Johnny, yeah, he was raised on a farm, but he wouldn't help his daddy. He went off to the city and became a drug addict, and when his daddy needed the help, Johnny wouldn't come and help his daddy. But now his daddy's died, and Johnny wants the $50,000 that comes from the USDA under this claim.
That's the $50,000 we were referring to from Track A, the people who were getting compensated. So he's saying these black farmers who were discriminated against, that the courts, the government, everybody else has agreed were actually discriminated against. No, the money would actually go to their sons who are in the city and obviously drug addicts. Why? Because they're black. Now, you tell me how it's otherwise. The case is on black farmers, and he pretends they're not farmers, but that their sons have gone to the city and become drug addicts. Why? Because Steve King assumes if you're black, you must be a drug addict in the city. Because that's his stupid stereotype, and he can't get it out of his racist, thick skull. And the great irony of this is the reason the government has to pay all this money, and I don't like that the government has to pay this money. I don't like that they discriminated in the first place. They did because they made racist assumptions and had racist actions against African American farmers. They said, if you're African American, you're not going to get the same deal as white people. Now, everybody else already agrees to that, but Steve King says, yeah, but what if it goes to their drug addict black sons? I don't have enough bad words to say about Steve King, but he's not a guy that you should bring on your programs anymore and treat as if he's a legitimate, honest actor, and oh, he's got an opinion, and the other guy's got an opinion, they're all legitimate opinions. You know, even though everybody agrees that we should pay this money because of previous discrimination, Steve King thinks, well, blacks are all drug addicts, so we shouldn't give them the money just in case they use it on drugs. I want to say much harsher words against Steve King, but I think you know what I think. I'm going to leave it right there. Young Turks have a new sponsor, GoToMeetings. Online meetings made incredibly simple. You can set it up in 2 minutes and you can talk to anyone from anywhere. And it's only $49 a month and it's unlimited.
You can actually go to gotomeeting.com/Turks and get a 30-day trial.
I never heard anybody